Coronavirus, Singapore PM calls for end to US China blame game, wants to see leadership from Trump administration. So do we. Speaking as a Brazilian who's also concerned for how this thing is going to decimate the USA, well, Brazil too, it's really refreshing to see a sane national leader. Even though his pleas will be completely fruitless. Singapore PM calls for end to US China blame game. Fair enough. Wants to see leadership from Trump administration. Ah ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ahho fuck, fucking lol. Playing the blame game while the pandemic is going on is a waste of time. If you can spend time assigning the blame, you can put that time wasted into doing something productive for the crisis. Also, both Trump and Xi are playing it to deflect blame from their own constituents. Only by having a foreign power to deflect blame on can they reduce anger against their missteps. That being said, America really needs to step up on their game for foreign policy. The Bush, second, era neglect of the Southeast Asia caused the region to gravitate towards China. Obama sort of stopped that, and Trump's foreign policy, or lack of, has accelerated the issue again. Singapore's foreign policy statements are usually neutral. Our favorite being "we urge all parties to exercise restraint." The passive-aggressive statement where our PM asks Trump to show leadership is pointing out how annoyed we are at Trump's actions during these trying times. Well, leadership from the Trump is very important for Singapore, especially now that they are importing more cases from the US. If they didn't start the ban on US nationals already, they will soon. Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said on Sunday it would be a pity if the United States failed to put to use its immense expertise, soft power, and resources to lead global efforts to overcome the grave challenge to mankind posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking in a live interview with CNN, the Southeast Asian city-states leader also decried the US-China blame game that has erupted in recent weeks over the outbreak, saying it was not going to help us solve the problem sooner. The comments by the Singaporean leader come as US President Donald Trump's administration remains mired in criticism over its fractured response to the crisis, with few countries looking to the American leader or his top officials for guidance on dealing with the pandemic. Instead, the fastidious approaches wielded by the likes of Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea in testing and tracking down infected people are being seen as instructive for the rest of the world. China, which is slowly recovering after bearing the early brunt of the outbreak, has meanwhile started to assert a leadership role by doling out donations of medical supplies to dozens of its trading partners. Lee, speaking to CNN's Fareed Zakaria by video link, said he wanted to see American leadership of the situation. Yes, of course. You have the resources, you have the science, you have the influence, you have the soft power, and you have the track record of dealing with these problems convincingly and successfully, and in the greater good of many countries, not just the US, Lee said. It's a pity not to put those resources to work now to deal with this very grave challenge to mankind. The trading of barbs and insults between Washington and China over who was to blame for the pandemic was a most unfortunate situation, Lee said. Under the best of circumstances, there's going to be a very difficult challenge for mankind. But if the US and China are swapping insults and blaming one another for inventing the virus and letting it loose on the world, I don't think that is going to help us solve the problem sooner, he said. Lee, whose country has emerged in recent years as one of Washington's most important strategic partners in Southeast Asia, signaled that countries may turn elsewhere if American leadership was not forthcoming to lead the fight against the virus. The world has greatly benefited from American leadership in situations like this for decades, Lee said. But if America is in a different mode, well, we will get by, and I think other configurations will eventually work out, but it would be a loss, the Prime Minister said. Asked about the continued rhetoric by the likes of the U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo that China's opacity and throttling of whistleblowers in the early days of the outbreak was in some way to blame for the health crisis, Lee said he did not believe that one can say this would not have happened if only the Chinese had done the right thing. You look at the way the outbreak has continued, grown, and spread in many countries. They don't have the Chinese government, and yet they have not found it easy to keep the outbreak under control in their country. While Singapore has done far better than some of its neighbors in containing the outbreak, the city-state had 844 confirmed cases and 3 fatalities as of Sunday. Lee said his government was under no illusions that we have won. I would hesitate to talk about success because we are right in the midst of a battle which is intensifying, the 68-year-old leader said. Lee also touched on the economic impact of the pandemic, saying he did not expect the situation to normalize until people gain confidence that they have a hold on the virus / that we can resume normal socializing, normal traveling and normal human intercourse. Lee said it could be several years before the virus runs its course throughout the world unless something happens to abort that process. There are expectations that Lee, in power since 2004, may soon call a snap election in the midst of the pandemic to secure a fresh mandate to deal with the economic turmoil. Preliminary forecasts suggest the trade-reliant economy could experience its worst ever recession this year. Asked if the crisis would compel him to postpone his well-publicized plan to step down sometime after the next general election, Lee said he was focused on the task at hand. This crisis keeps my hands full. Let's just focus on that for now, he said. Trump later responded to the call out and had the following to say. Trump, what's Singapore? Now on to sports. Interesting how Chinese officials blaming the U.S. Army didn't make it into the article. We should listen to them. Singapore has kept its coronavirus curve among the flattest. Dude, Chinese officials accused the US military of making the virus and causing the outbreak in Wuhan. This is a link to an editorial, not a news article, published by a paper that has questionable ties, http://www. Xinhuarisi. Info/confessions made in China/ to the Chinese government, https://www. hongkong.com/2017/07/21/ South China Morning Post removes article linking Chinese President 11 Jinping Singaporean investor / wants to see leadership from Trump administration. LOL. Guy must think Obama's still the President of the United States of America. Translation, shut the fuck up and do your jobs. Seems par for the course, China and the US are doing something wrong. The USA gets called out, China gets nothing. Maybe if this wasn't a trend they wouldn't have opened the wet markers back up after the original SARS outbreak. Everyone's stating the obvious, Trump has no leadership. This is more of a political statement for Southeast Asia region / ASEAN. Simply put, if the US can't be the stable country it has been since the Cold War, many ASEAN countries will align with China, whether by choice or otherwise. In fact, some countries has shown preference for the Chinese, if only for the money. Edit. ASEAN countries aligning with China has the hallmarks of a cultural / soft power war or a Cold War episode too. China has several African countries in their pocket too, so there's that. Maybe if China didn't try to hide it from the rest of the world we'd be better off. How about something we can actually deliver, like cold fusion, or proof of unicorns?